This is Dr. Maggie Dominguez with Bernie ISD, and you're listening to the Ascent with Crestmont Private Wealth.
The opinions expressed are those of the host. The material is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute investment advice, and it is not intended as an endorsement for any specific investment. Visit CrestmontPW.com for more details.
Welcome to the Ascent. This is Sam McGee, CEO and owner of Crestmont Private Wealth. We have offices in Houston, Texas, and Bernie, Texas, One Riverway in Houston, and 604 South Main, the old Dinger homestead, with the White House and the American flag out front and the over-fertilized lawn. So today I've got two special guests. I've got Garrett Wilson with the Board of Trustees of BISD. Welcome, Garrett.
Thank you.
And we have Dr. Maggie Dominguez, who is with Bernie ISD as the Executive Director of Communications. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about education. Now, this is a really good topic because we do have a ton of clients that were teachers, but also we have a ton of clients that actually went to school. Can you imagine that? Like pretty much everybody listening to this went to school. So I think this is a really, really good topic because we're going to be talking about Texas specifically because our two special guests are experts on Texas education. And if you're listening in another state, it might be a little bit different, but we're going to be talking about Texas. And then we're going to narrow that down a little bit to our local district and BISD about an upcoming vote, which is super interesting. Let's just start it from the top. So, Dr. Dominguez, tell us a little bit about these golden pennies and education funding in Texas, how it all works.
We would need a lot longer, multiple hours, but I'll kind of do a quick overview. So the state of Texas has a really complicated funding formula, and it's really based on how wealthy your area is. And the state of Texas says if you are property wealthy, we're going to give you less state funding, essentially. In Texas, we're used to hearing about Robinhood or Recapture. So that's for those areas that are very property wealthy, like Bernie, where you're doing really well and the state's going to take some of the money that people believe are going to public schools. They're going to take that back and use it for something else. Sometimes it goes to other educational opportunities, but it's not staying in the community. Bernie paid $120 million in recapture between 2006 and 2023 without going out for what's called golden pennies. So a lot of communities around the state of Texas have already gone out for these golden pennies. It's a mechanism the state put in place saying if you want money back from the state, you're going to have to take it to your voters. So we have 5 of the golden pennies. There's 8 total that every school district in Texas gets. We have 5 with just board approval that we've kind of gained over the years as the state funding formula has changed and the state has changed the rules. These final 3 are what we're able to do to get some of the money back from the state and to enrich our community, and it goes right into our maintenance and operating budget, and we have to take it to the voters to approve that. So we had to build it into our budget in June and launch this campaign essentially in August in order to get this funding. So for every dollar that we get out of this tax increase, because it is an increase, we get 60 cents from the state. That's an amazing deal for Bernie ISD. That's $4.8 million annually. And what we're earmarking it for, it's going to go to teacher salaries for the most part.
Interesting. So these golden pennies, this is a statewide thing.
Yes.
So
every school district in the state has this opportunity.
So if you're listening in Dallas or Lubbock or anywhere, they have these golden pennies. And I keep wanting to say golden ticket. I don't know why Willy Wonka is coming into my brain. But anyway, I'm going to remember this.
It feels like a little bit. Yeah.
It kind of does. So golden pennies, does every district get up to 8 or is it?
Up to 8, but the 3 that we're waiting on, we've been waiting for a long time for the right moment to do this. Other folks have already done it, and so it's kind of old news in their communities, and they can't go past 8, right?
Okay.
But that's how this mechanism works, and it's state created. It's pretty much the only mechanism the state's given us to recoup some of those funds we lost during Robinhood.
Got it. So basically, you don't really have control as a voter on the Robinhood. So when you're paying the taxes, the money's going out, and then you have control by voting.
Yes.
In order to recapture some of your recapture, in a nutshell.
Reverse Robinhood is the phrase that Garrett used,
Robinhood.
which I think we should trademark. But yeah, that's essentially what it's doing. And it's not reversing it all the way. I mean, 120 million, that's a long climb ahead of us to get all of that money back. But if you think about it that way, you start to see why school districts across the state are in this position where they're having to utilize this mechanism. As their communities grow, as they do well, they're receiving less state support.
Interesting. Garrett, you're a board trustee, also a banker here. Yep. And from your perspective, what do you think the public should know about this? I mean, if you're in Texas, you're listening to this, and maybe you're not an expert in it like Dr. Dominguez is. What are some of the basics to know from your perspective?
Yeah, good question. The state funding formulas and how schools are financed in the state of Texas is such a complex issue that half the battle that you have is just in when you go out for a Vader or a bond election or something like that, is just educating the community on how this stuff works. It's difficult for us, and we live and breathe it, right? I've been a trustee for 4 years, and I still very frequently come across stuff that I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that's how it worked. But just to simplify it, there's actually 2 tax rates that school districts have in the state of Texas. One, and I'm going to make some big generalizations here.
No, this is good. I like generalizations.
Yeah, so don't hold me to it here because this is very generalized. But one tax rate is the one that you build buildings with. It's called the interest and sinking tax rate, and that just builds buildings, right? The other one is the maintenance and operation. And that's one we're talking about here today and that Dr. Dominguez just talked about extensively there. That's the maintenance and operations tax rate. That almost exclusively goes to paying teachers and staff. So the 2 tax rates are completely separate. They have nothing to do with each other. The money that each one raises, you can't use it for the other bucket. You can't use it for the other. You know, the one you build buildings with, you can't pay teachers with it, and vice versa. What gets complicated for everybody, I think every resident of the state of Texas, is that when you go look at your tax bill on the appraisal district website, they lump those 2 tax rates together. So if you go look at yours on Bernie ISD right now, it's $1.01. That's actually the maintenance and operation, which is what, 68 cents, 69 cents, somewhere there. And then the interest and sinking tax rate, which is 31.4. So the interest and sinking tax rate, each school district has basically complete control over that tax rate. Ours is 31.4, like I just said, which is one of the lowest, if not probably the lowest at this point, of any school district in the Austin and San Antonio area that are...
Be quiet. A lot of people are going to move here.
Yeah, we've got an extremely low tax rate, actually, in comparison to other fast growth districts.
It really is.
We compare ourselves to fast growth districts because we have to build buildings. We have kids coming in every year, and we have to find classroom space for them, right? So that's different from a school district that doesn't have a lot of growth. So the one that we have a lot of control over, the one that we build buildings with, it's very, very, very low in comparison to our peer group. It's not maintenance and operation one, the one that we use to pay teachers. That's the one we're asking for these golden pennies here, because the only mechanism that the school board or the school district has to raise that rate and get more funding to pay teachers is to go after those last 3 golden pennies. And so what we're doing is we're asking the community to raise that rate by 3 cents. And like Dr. Dominguez said, about 2/3 of that will come from the local taxpayers. And then the state match funds a guaranteed rate of return about 65%. Pretty good deal. You know, if you could put $1 in the stock market and get $1.65 back every year, you know, I'd go mortgage my house probably. And
yeah. Unfortunately, we can't do that. Yeah. But yeah, it sounds a lot like almost kind of like a matching 401k. Why would someone go and work somewhere that has a matching 401k and not participate to get the match? Well, in this case, you have tax increase, but this is super interesting. I want to shift gears here. I said at the beginning of the show that we have a lot of clients that are teachers. Those are typically spouses of high-earning individuals. We don't have a lot of teachers that are in the wealth management space for needs because they're not wealthy, right? I mean, let's be honest. A couple teachers working in the state of Texas probably not going to qualify with $1 million portfolio unless they are very aggressive savers. Now, I'm not saying it can't happen, so I don't want to offend anybody, but you know, they're not paid very well in the state of Texas. And so, you know, as I think about just the level of tax increases we've experienced in a very affluent area, and those that are listening probably live in an affluent area. Maybe it's Katy, Texas, maybe it's Highland Park or somewhere else. I mean, if you're teacher in that district, you have a commute, or if you live there, it's going to be really expensive, right? And last time I checked, Bernie's not getting any cheaper.
Nope.
So yeah, that's pretty rough. So what does this mean in terms of, you know, long term? From y'all's opinion, when you look at a potential salary increase for a school district, take Bernie out of the equation. What do you think that does for, the education? What do you think that does for recruitment? Like, talk a little bit about that.
I think it shows what we value as their employer. I mean, I will reference Bernie because I think this is true in lots of communities. We're the largest employer in the county that we're in. We have thousands of employees, and they put millions of dollars back into the local economy every month. And that helps that community stay healthy. We're also graduating students who are really civically minded. And I think that that's just a very Texas value for us to be graduating kids who care about their communities, who care about their state, and take pride in that. And so then they in turn give back to those communities and enhance those communities, right? And that's what you want. And if you're not paying the people who are educating them appropriately, you consistently lose those people to maybe they leave the teaching profession altogether, right? Maybe they decide it's not lucrative enough for them, or they're not able to sustain living near where they want to teach. Bernie's A-rated. We're one of only 31 districts in the entire state. There's 1,207 districts in the state of Texas. We're one of 31 that's got an A rating for 6 years running. And we know that we're investing in our kids and we're graduating great kids and we're trying to do all of this, but we're consistently asking our people to do more with less. We can't continue to do that, right? And keep them here because we're asking people to make really terrible decisions, right? About how they're going to provide for their family. We're putting this additional stress on them. And really, we just want our teachers to show up and do what they're amazing at and not have all that extra burden on them and on their families. So we need to start paying them appropriately. I think that's the state of Texas needs to start doing that and investing in teachers in a real way that enhances their bottom line. Our teachers retire on their 5 best years. So if we're giving them a Christmas bonus that doesn't go towards their bottom line, that's not helping them retire on a better salary, right?
Sure.
So I think we really just need to be looking at the full picture, but how we pay these folks shows how much we value them.
So we are, and I think people understand this here in our community, but we are paying less to our teachers than most of the school districts around us at this point. And it's going to become a bigger issue over the years because what the state legislature just did and the way that they redrew the funding formulas, that problem's going to get worse. And so we were already paying them less, and that gap is about to grow significantly larger. And so that's one reason why this is so important, is that we've got to get ahead of that now instead of trying to make up the difference 4 or 5 years from now when we have to pass a Vader, but because right now we need to pass it anyway. So it's pretty dire, but in 4 or 5 years, it's going to be significantly more important.
Well, I was just thinking about the cost of living since COVID. Right. So you've seen this, Garrett. I mean, as a banker, I'm sure you guys do a ton of construction financing projects and just see the cost of building. I mean, we're not talking about the building sinking fund here, but just the sheer cost of everything has gone up, including property values, including, even a bite to eat down on Main Street, costs a lot more than it did in 2019. So have the salaries adjusted to that?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah. The state funding formulas didn't change at all from 2019 until the spring in 2025. And they changed at that point. But for Bernie, we got, another $400,000 in funding out of about a $106 million budget. So really, we didn't get any increase at all. So that means we haven't been able to increase teacher salaries at all.
So what does that mean? Say you're a teacher and you're making, $60,000 a year. And from what I've heard, the cost of insurance has gone up a significant amount. So you're making $60,000 a year and you may get a small increase, but you've got other increased costs. What does that mean for that family?
$500,000 of the Vader is earmarked towards closing the gap on what the TRS increases, like what happened with that, because we need to contribute more to their insurance, right?
Sure.
So it's across the board. Their expenses are increasing and the district hasn't been able to meet those on pace because the district's funding from the state hasn't increased. So we do have on our website some information, but what cost us $3.8 million in 2019 costs us $9 million now.
Well, that's a good pivot. So if somebody wanted to have more information on this, and whether you're in district or out of district, or you're just kind of curious, where would they find more information on this?
Yeah, about Bernie specifically, BernieISD.net/Vader. That's VATRE. But if you just Google Texas Vaders, you're going to find a bunch of information about what's going on in your community with this kind of a mechanism.
Super interesting. So as I mentioned, every one of our listeners has been to school. Every single one of you has gone through school. At least I hope so. But, what we're talking about today is an investment in children, in teachers, and, how this whole system works. I learned a lot today from our guests. I didn't know whether to call it a golden ticket or a golden penny, but now I know there's 8 of them, golden pennies. And today we had Dr. Maggie Dominguez and Garrett Wilson, board trustee, here on the show. Thank you guys for coming on and sharing your expertise and educating the public a little bit about this, because I think this is an interesting time that we live in, higher inflation, and we're coming up on a vote here in November. So thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
I think that's all we have time for. Get out and vote no matter what. Have a great weekend, and God bless.